Hello and welcome to video number 4. Today we're going to be talking to you about key activities and key resources when you're going through your business plan. So let's get started. So first of all, you kind of want to identify the key activities you're going to be using to create value for your value proposition. So some questions you might want to ask yourself when doing this are, will you be developing physical, like actual tangible products, or digital products, which would be software that you code on the computer or your employees code on the computer? Another question you should ask yourself is, will you be solving customer problems? The answer to this should be yes, because pretty much all businesses should solve a problem. Your product or service should be the solution to a problem in the consumer market. And the last question you should ask yourself for key activities is, will you develop and maintain a platform for your customers to use? So this could be a website. A lot of companies have websites, so that's kind of obvious. User communities, which could be places where I kind of talked about this a little bit in my last video. Basically, where customers can interact with each other, and it's self-sufficient because the customers pretty much run the show, and send questions back and forth to each other. So it's a really low maintenance. And then customer service could be another one of these platforms you maintain. So this could be essentially a phone line you maintain, that an automated phone line, or actual live customer service, any of those things I talked about in the last video. So, and then we got the key resources required to make this business model work. So you should really consider the 4 aspects: physical, intellectual, human, and financial assets. So you got 4 different types of assets. So let's get a little more in depth with each of these. First of all, you got your physical assets, which are, I kind of talked about earlier, the actual tangible assets that you can touch and feel and see. So let's say if you're a window washing company, essentially what your physical assets would be your window washing equipment, your supplies, all that kind of stuff falls under the physical category. Next, we got your intellectual assets. So this is essentially knowledge. It could be intellectual property, IP. There's a whole segment on that. But essentially, in your window washing business, this would be the knowledge. The process of washing these windows quickly and effectively. That you can do it better than anyone else can. The whole process would be an intellectual asset. Some other things into this are intellectual property. So like, if you wrote a book, your copyright, other people can't, redistribute your work without your permission. Trademarks, all that kind of stuff, patents, all that falls under intellectual property and intellectual assets. Next, we got human assets. So this is another term for this is human capital. It's essentially the people that allow this company to function. So you got your employees. They're probably one of the most important ones. And next to employees are customers, because you gotta have employees and you gotta have customers to make the business work. Some businesses require less employees than others because the advances of technology. Others require a lot of employees. So it's basically what kind of business you're dealing with. And so another one is consultants. They're basically people you can consult for if you're having a problem with your business or you need some advice. Usually pay a fee per hour, and they can be a valuable asset to your company as well. And then lastly, we got financial assets. So this includes pretty much any type of funding your company can receive. So this could be venture capital firms. Essentially, they're a group of people who invest in your company. In return for the money they grant you, they get a certain percentage of your company. They get equity, and so they're involved in the business making decisions from then on out. And so there's a price for getting that capital to start up, and that's the price for it is. They get a little bit of equity, and depending on how you debate it, they can get more or less equity. And so then we got angel investors. These are kind of like venture capitalists, but they're not really in a firm. They're just acting on their own, and so they just kind of rich people who want to make a difference or want to see some cool products and get interested in that kind of stuff. And then we got grants. So this could be like, the cool thing about grants is you don't have to pay them back. These could be issued by the government. Essentially, you have to go through an application process, and if you fit the criteria, then you can get a grant, which is awesome because you don't have to pay it back. And along with grants comes loans. Loans you actually have to pay back, but they're also they're a good thing to resort to if none of these other options work out. You do have to pay interest on the amount that you are lent, so there's that. But you can still be a profitable business if the interest rates are low enough. You can get a loan from the government. You can get it from any sort of bank. There's a lot of places you can get loans from. So that kind of covers the four types of key resources. By the way, this also includes technology, so computing and communications equipment, software. So it's basically your computers would fall under the physical category, and software, so any programs or any of that kind of stuff that involves coding or programs would be an intellectual side of that. And so that kind of covers that. Then you got to identify whether you would own these resources, rent or lease them, or acquire them through business partners. So would you actually own the money you got from the venture capitalists, or are you taking a loan that you have to pay back, or are you acquiring some money through some of your business partners who are investing themselves? So that's just kind of an example for that. And lastly, just ensure that all these activities and resources that we discuss fit your customer segments. So they got to fit your customer segments, your value proposition, your channels, customer relationships, all of that. Just kind of think of it like a puzzle. You got all your puzzle fit together. You need one more piece. That last piece doesn't fit in correctly. You want to go with something else. So that's kind of how the business model canvas handles key resources and key activities. So Eros, you want to kind of go into how the Lean Startup handles this deal?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, as we're going over this, there was a lot of similarity on both of those. And I mean, of course, whenever you're building a company, whether you're using a Lean Startup or the business model canvas, you're going to need the right value proposition, and you're going to need the right people, no matter what, right? And the right resources. So I was just going to expand on the value proposition. So when you're drafting your value proposition, you have to keep in mind it's what you stand for. It's what your company stands for. So you have to give your customer a reason to care of why your product is different than all the other ones on the shelves. You want to make sure that you can reduce it to a single, clear, and compelling message that tells why your product is truly different from all the other ones. And so you want to actually be able to put it all together in such a short amount of time frame that you could even consider it an elevator pitch, right? And if you're familiar with an elevator pitch, it's maximum it would be like a minute and 30 seconds, but really 30, 40 seconds. If you can say it that quick, you got it. If you can convince someone that quick that your company is better than so many others, you've really done a great job in condensing the value that your company has and putting it into one clear, concise message.
Mm-hmm. And something you see with that a lot is it always starts out with a problem. Your elevator pitch should start out with a problem that your product will be solving. So that's an effective strategy to start it out.
And you talked about that too, about solving customer problems. Yeah, I mean, actually, that's why your value proposition. I know that it's really good to have a lot of these intellectual things why my features are better or why mine is faster, all this other stuff. But it has to be emotionally compelling. I think that's why so many engineers have trouble communicating off to the customer why their product is so much better. Because you got to keep in mind, can a common everyday user understand language you're using? Does it make sense in their minds? So with a lot of technology startups, they oversimplify their message. So you want to be able to understand what the product means with your heart, with your mind, not with your wallets and not with your calculators, right? You want to make sure that emotionally it feels right, mentally it feels right, and just your wallet, you're willing to pay for it, right? So that's just something that it's really important to think about when you're considering it. And another thing too is you want to keep in mind a product. The reason people buy is because you want to give someone a competitive advantage, right? So let's say that you're selling B2B, business to business. You want to say, well, am I going to make you save money? When I make you save time? What am I going to do for you, right? And you really got to communicate that over to the business. And finally, you want to make sure that your value proposition is realistic. You don't want to build a big reputation or a big game and then not be able to deliver. I mean, that's one of the worst things you can do, especially for your brand. So if you're going to draft up a value proposition that's really good, make sure that it's realistic and you can actually follow through. But on the other thing, for the resources, it makes sense. As a lean startup, you definitely want to keep your burn rate really low. You don't want to scale right away. But clearly, if you're first starting out, you want to make sure you have the right human capital. The financing, it depends how you want to go. There's a lot of people who say that you should never start a company on credit. They say you should start a company with a little bit of money and then reinvest it, make your business grow. Because I mean, like, really, what's the hurry, right? But really, make sure that you have all the technology you need. You have all the right people. And but really, they do overlap a lot. Lean startup and the business model canvas in this sector when you're looking for your key resources and you're drafting your value proposition.
Yeah, definitely. So, also kind of how we handled this with in our class with our whole idea, Rest Assured, or makeshift company. Essentially, key activities are, we would have to have essentially a calling center, but we decided that a calling center is, there's a lot of costs associated with that. You have a lot of physical assets you're going to have to need. So we decided to go with a kind of work from home business model. So we would have a piece of software coded specifically for this company. That would be, an intellectual asset of ours, and we'd pay a certain, we'd have a little budget for that, and essentially, essentially, these people would be able to, work from home, and using this program, a manager can monitor all the calls that are going on, at any time, and just make sure, everything's going smoothly, and it just takes away a lot of overhead that you don't have to work through an office to, have a successful business model. And then, so that's kind of how we would make sales to these nursing homes when we try to kind of sell them our interviewing services, to interview the elderly people, about what they accomplished in life, their regrets, or if they even had any regrets, essentially their life story in 20 minutes, and so we would kind of have to offer that to the nursing homes, and kind of try to sell it to them, give them a share of the profits. And another thing was, in order to do this, we would have to have a camera crew, and so we decided to kind of take a similar approach with that. And so we decided, instead of having like actual camera crew hiring employees like that, we could contract people. So just imagine school photos like in elementary school, where you had someone come over and take everyone's pictures. We're thinking about reaching out to those kind of people, because there's people like that in every state, all around the country, all around the world even. And so if we reached out to those kind of people, then we wouldn't even have to hire employees; they'd just be contractors. Of course, it would take a larger cut, but we could get them in every state. We wouldn't have to pay for gas, company vehicles, hotel stays. That'd be all on their part. So just things like that to eliminate overhead and pretty much keep these key resources to a minimum, and so that really reduces overhead. So that's kind of how we handled that. So thank you for watching. Tune in next time. We'll be talking about key partners, so that'll be pretty interesting. And again, thanks for watching. Have a good one.